Hey everyone, Mike Beckel here, coming to you from my home office in Kentucky. I'm Cadwell Industries Regional Intraoperative Neuro Monitoring Sales Manager for the Midwest, and I'd like to welcome you to our webinar today. Joining me is my friend, all from Cadwell Industries, Jonathan Green. He's our Field Installation and Application Support Specialist. Hey Jonathan, how you doing, brother?
I'm well, Mike. How are you, man?
Having a great day. Beautiful day in Kentucky. How is it where you are?
It's a great day right outside of Nashville, Tennessee. Sun shining, beautiful weather.
Great. Looking good there, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, boy, these have been some unusual times here in this country. And with that, Cadwell has continued to want to support our customers. We have heard that some of our intraoperative monitoring customers are experiencing a little slowdown. So in light of that, we decided to put together this program today, this webinar, which we've entitled Education and Isolation, Everything You Need to Know About Cascade Surgical Studio. So again, welcome. Thank you for joining us. With that, I'm going to just do a little education here. I'm going to take off my video, and I want to show you some of the tools that we'll be using for our webinar today. Now, first of all, you all should have this little toolbar that is used when you logged in. Just want to point out that the orange box with the arrow in it will minimize or maximize your tools. I'll skip the phone or the audio connection. Below that is whether you want to maximize or minimize your screen. And below that is raising and lowering your hand if you want to ask a question. I will ask that for now, we just not use that. We'll try and open it up for questions at the end, provided we have enough time. For questions, if you go down the toolbar a little bit further, you'll see a triangle, and if it's not expanded, expand that, and you can enter a question there, and Jonathan will look at your questions and try and help answer them, or if it's something that needs clarification during the webinar, he will join me and we will try and get your questions answered there. Also, you'll see the handouts section. I did provide some handouts. You could, for right now, click on the first one, the Overview, Education, and Isolation handout. And we will talk about the things we're going to cover in our webinar today. So I'm bringing up my my outline. Education and isolation, everything you need to know about Cascade Surgical Studio. We've decided to make this a three-part series. And today's webinar will be on transitioning to Surgical Studio from Cascade Classic. So we'll be talking today about installing or acquiring, installing, licensing, and operating Cascade Surgical Studio. I'm going to show you how to download, install, and license it. I'll show you how to start procedures, how the screens are laid out, how data is acquired, adjusting STIM parameters, recording parameters, entering events, ending data acquisition, generating reports, and archiving data. Those will be the primary things. So today is going to be an outline of how to operate Cascade Surgical Studio. Next week, and 1 week from today, we'll do session 2, Under the Hood of Surgical Studio. Here we'll be discussing how you're able to import or export from Cascade Classic your procedure setup files, import them into Surgical Studio, also how to create and edit new ones, how to edit reports, and how we can work with modes to make setting up procedures much easier for you. And then the final class in 2 weeks from today will be Surgical Studio Masterclass, where we'll talk about administration of records and patients and sites and all the things that go on in detail around making this a great application for managing your patients and your cases. The next handout is specific to today's outline of today's transitioning to Surgical Studio from Cascade Classic. So with that, I just wanted to provide you with that outline. I will move on to actually how do you get this Cascade Surgical Studio. So give me just a moment to change screens. Okay. Now, to get your hands on Cascade Surgical Studio, I know many of you probably have already gotten Cascade Surgical Studio. If you have a recent system that you've purchased from Cadwell, it will come pre-installed with Cascade Surgical Studio. But for those of you who don't, I do want to be sure you know how to get your hands on this piece of software, and that's what we'll do at this point. So, easiest way, go to cadwell.com. That'll bring you to Cadwell's website. And at the very top of that, choose Cadwell Support. You'll then be launched on our Cadwell Support website, and you will need to sign in. I'm actually signed in already, so I'm going to log out. So this would be the screen that you would see. Now, since everyone is pretty much already registered for this webinar, I'm assuming you're already registered for Premier Support. And if you scroll down a little bit, you will see want access to our complimentary premium support. So if you've not registered, assuming you all have, you would need to do that before you would have access to our downloads. So you would click the register, and you would complete all the sections at the bottom down here. And as you can see, this is for our US customers only. All the items with a red asterisk are required. You will need your product name. If you need your Cadwell account, or if you have the account number, that's very helpful. One of the serial numbers from one of your devices is also very helpful. So upon completing that, it just takes a few minutes, and you will be granted access to our premium site, and I will then log in.
Just a quick note, Mike, for a second, if I could.
Sure.
Want to make sure and specify that downloads are for USA clients only. Otherwise, they need to go through their distributors to get those.
Excellent point. Thank you, Jonathan. Okay, I've now logged into Premium Support. There are some very nice Cascade Support frequently asked questions here, and you can browse those as needed, but the primary thing I want to take you to at this point is the download section. So I hover on downloads, choose IOM downloads, Select that. And the first thing at the top here is Cascade Surgical Studio. And we always have our latest released version of software on the website. So this is the best way to get it. I would recommend when you register that you do check the box to be notified when updates are put on the website, so you always know when the latest version is available. I would like to point out a couple of documents that I really would like you to look at before you install the software. One is the Surgical Studio installation instructions. Now, I've included those in the handouts, but you can always get them off the website. So please read this. It will take you through step by step on how to do the installation. One of the things it's going to mention is make sure that your PC that you're using, and some folks are using some older laptops or older PCs, make sure that it meets the specifications for running Cascade Surgical Studio, so you're not disappointed with the performance. So number one of this document says ensure that your PC meets the requirements. Please look at this Cascade Surgical Studio system configuration document. Well, that is, I'm going back here, that's the next document in the list. Cascade Surgical Studio system configuration. Going to scroll down. And here's our Cascade computer specifications. So for those of you who don't know, I'm going to help real quick on how to determine if your computer meets these specifications. So the first thing is the operating system. Windows 7 Professional, Service Pack 1 64-bit, or Windows 10 64-bit. Well, how do I determine if I'm running that? What I found to be the easiest way is to go to your search and just type in computer, and as that, it'll either say my computer or this PC, depending on your operating system. And if you right click on that and choose properties, you will see that I'm running Windows 10 Home with a Core i5 9400 CPU running at 2.9 gigahertz, and I've got 12 gigabytes of RAM, and I've got the 64-bit operating system. So I meet the criteria. The one that I'm not sure of based on this is where there's a recommendation for Intel processor 2 cores or more. Highly recommend 4 cores or more. Well, how do you find out how many cores you have? Control-Shift-Escape will bring up the task manager. And if you check or click on or select performance, in the lower right, you will see the number of cores. I'm hovering my mouse there. Cores, I've got 6 cores, 6 logical processors. So my PC definitely meets the requirement for installing Cascade Surgical Studio. So I then can choose to download it. Of course, you can download it before then. So it's downloading now, but I'm going to stop that because I've already downloaded it. You would obviously let it continue. I have it on a thumb drive, which I'm going to put in my PC here and just take you through the installation here. So let me browse to my thumb drive. And what you will have is this icon, Cascade Surgical Studio 3.5.1414. That's the latest release. You'll select that. And for most of you, that will be in your downloads folder, unless you choose another folder to install it. And you'll need to accept the user and license agreement. And the installation will take place.
Mike, while this is installing, I just want to take an opportunity to remind everybody that you will be getting a copy of this presentation emailed to you after this is finished. So you can use this for video for a future resource if you wish.
Thanks, John. Very helpful information. So I primarily wanted to take you through the installation to bring you to the next step, which is the licensing of this. As it's never been installed on this particular PC before, I wanted to show you the next the stages of what you will see when you first install this. And I believe we're just about completed here. Okay, install complete. I'm going to close that. So on my desktop now, I will have Cascade Surgical Studio. I will double click to launch that.
And Mike, we noticed Studio does take a few more seconds to launch than the Classic. I think we found out because it's a pretty intuitive program, it has so much to open up that's involved in Surgical Studio. And that's what makes our life easier through this program.
Exactly. All right. Gotta let Windows do a couple things here. Let's see if it'll get launched here. Okay. All right, so back at this screen here, I'm going to exit. Exit our outline. We'll get it started here shortly. Now, when you launch it, it is going to ask us for a username and password. That is a requirement of Cascade Surgical Studio. It's also very helpful for tracking users and switching users and any number of things that are really important in the modern day network environment. So when you get this application for the first time, the user is going to be admin, and the login is going to be, or the password is going to be the exact same as the username, lowercase admin. And I'm choosing login, and again, it does take a moment to launch. Oh, sorry about that. Managed to do it twice there. All right, I did launch it on my computer that does have it already licensed. So I do want to show you how you will, when your first screen that will come up is going to say, you don't have a license key, enter in trial mode. So you will want to select enter in trial mode. But I do want to show you how you get the license updated. And that is done across the title bar up here under the question mark. And when you select the question mark, you choose product licensing. And this window will show up. And if you don't have a license ID, which I obviously do, you will have trial mode selected there. And you would need to upgrade that in order to have a fully licensed version. And if you do not have that license ID, again, if you have a recently purchased system from Cadwell, you will have a license ID because it does come pre-installed. If you're using an older system, you will need to acquire a license ID, and you will need to do that through your sales rep can help, and sales support from Cadwell can help, and we will get that to you. It is a free upgrade. All the features that you have with Classic will be licensed on your new Surgical Studio application. So that should take us through how to get it, how to install it, and how to get the license on there. So under the question mark, product licensing. So the next step is, how do we start procedures? Well, when you launch Cascade Surgical Studio, as I mentioned, you do need to log in as a user, and the default user is going to be admin. It's going to bring you up to the screen that I'm looking at right now. It assumes Cascade Surgical Studio, we assume you're going to use it most of the time to acquire data. So it brings us up to the new case screen right from the beginning, which is here's our menu area over here on the left. And right now it's expanded. We've got the cases area here of the menu, new case, a scheduled case, append to one that already exists, remote monitor, which would be used primarily by a remote oversight person connecting to you, and review a case that's already been done. Below that is administrative tools that we will be talking about in our future webinars. If you do not see this menu, it's possible that the three little bars up here that we often refer to as a hamburger has been clicked and it's been minimized. So you can click on that and you will see your menu. I would like to take you across the title bar very quickly. Right now it says we're using CADX Simulator. I'm actually going to click that, and I'm going to pick Basic Simulator for Cascade 16 Elite or Pro. We've got the version of software we're using, 3.5.1414. I am logged in as admin. If I were logged in as another user, it would have my name up there, that username up there. This tool is just telling us what my IP and computer name is, and this would be used if you were, again, had to direct connect from like a physician were direct connecting to you, you could provide an IP address. The two little people is how you can switch users in the middle of a case without stopping it, so another user can take over for you. The next icon is our CAD capture, which is a video capture of whatever's happening on your screen. And then, of course, the question mark, which is our help, as well as device information, some shortcuts, licensing, and then save system info and remote assistance are usually used at our direction from support, helping to perhaps troubleshoot an issue. So that's the general layout. So I'd like to jump right into how do I start a procedure. So I launch it. You can see the patient information. There's a couple of requireds up here. So we always require a last and first name. Any other data can be entered now and during the case, after the case, at whatever time is most convenient for you. And various fields can actually be required. If your facility always requires that room number be put down, that can be a required field, and that will be under administration in a couple of weeks, how to do that kind of functionality. But to get started quickly, last name, first name, you come down and you pick your procedure. So I'm going to pick this first one, number one spine Cascade Pro 32, and then go to the lower right-hand corner to start the case. It does take a little getting used to go lower right-hand corner. Just think lower right-hand corner to make your selections. It's a little bit different than in classic where you tended to go upper left-hand corner, but you'll get used to it very quickly. So the procedure's launched. Again, just a quick orientation on various things that are on our screen here. Again, our title bar at the top, Cascade Surgical Studio, the name of the application we're using. Your patient name would appear here. The procedure that you're using will appear next. Of course, we're in simulator mode. That's telling us with this little bit of information here which simulator we're using. The 4 bars here, if someone were connected to you remotely, this would tell you the connectivity of the live reviewers, the version of software we're running, the user that's logged in running the procedure, the direct connect information, and of course, switching users, CAD capture, and a question mark. Below that is what we call the menu bar. And of course, you've got this on Classic. So any of these, if you click on them, you will get a menu of things that can be done. Now that I've clicked on one, I can just hover on the other and they will show us what's available. Events, various controls that we have. Back to our help menu, same as the question mark in the upper right-hand corner. And then our toolbar. One thing you'll find with Surgical Studio in particular is if you hover on anything for just a moment, it will tell you master volume, show history, procedure setup, channel setup, mode group setup, video setup, the Z for impedance. So if I were doing a real case, that'd probably be the first thing I'd do, is check my impedances. Also a nice way to see where to plug my electrodes in. Let me see if I can expand that a little bit. So we've got amp 1, pod A and B, amp 2, pod A and B. Just click OK when those are done. Case information. So if I, in the middle of the case, needed to complete more of the patient data, I would select that and complete my data. Global EP, very much like Global EP in Cascade Classic. A new feature of Cascade Surgical Studio is the ability to take screenshots, so I can quickly just come up here and select this camera and take a screenshot. My view tools, if I hit the drop down, I can jump to any view just in Classic. And you've got the navigate to the next view or navigate to the previous view. And we've got a timer built into Surgical Studio, which now primarily it'd be used for perhaps carotid clamp times, or you could set it to remind you when to do another MEP. like 15 minutes has passed, that kind of thing. And then a couple tools for adding windows and mode controls and event logs and our chat features over here. So after that, the layout is very, very much like Classic. We really try to give it a feel very much like Classic. So you'll see title bar, left upper SSEP, right upper SSEP, lower, right lower. Got some free run EMG down here. Got some mode controls over here on the right. One of the things that we've added is the ability to give yourself some more screen space, and we call this auto hiding or pinning. So over here on the very far right, I've got my event log, and I click on that and I can expand it, and if I click anywhere else, it hides it over on the right again. But if you have a really nice large screen and you would like that out all the time, you can click on it, choose the little pin, which takes the auto hide off, and now I can dock this window and it'll be on my screen all the time. And I'm just going to resize it a little bit. Okay, so we've checked our impedances. We know where everything's plugged in. Again, just like Classic, if you click on the mode control, left click, it will expand the control. Instead of the dial, we now have a slider. Just like with Classic, the page up. So I'm hitting the up arrow right now, and it's going up in 0.5 milliamp increments. And the page up and page down will take you up in 1 milliamp increments. One of the really neat things about Surgical Studio is you can preset the intensity values for all these different modalities, different SSEPs. So you don't need to go into each one like before. You can just turn them on because I told it I wanted to start my uppers at 20 and my lowers at 25. You can also, we don't have the all auto, all manual modes. We just call them groups now. So we just created a group earlier that will control all of these together. So I can turn them all on and off with one button up here. So I can very quickly get in here and get started. I can come down here to free run and turn that on. And I am running my study. Now, for those of you who are used to doing things in Classic, you can, let's say I want to next do some motor evoke potentials or perhaps a train of 4 before I do that. So I can go up here and select my 4 view, and it will bring me to my train of 4 view. I have already pre-programmed this to 30 milliamps, so I just need to start hitting my button and I will get a train of 4. Now, again, like in Classic, if you click on any window, you get a menu, and many of these are the same menu option you would have in Classic. So if I want to set a baseline for my train of 4, I choose set baseline. I then can run another train of 4 and go back to EMG. Again, baselines, if I wanted to right click in this window and set a baseline, I could. Or I can go up to global EP, just like in Classic, and set baselines for all of them. So I now have baseline set for all of my EPs. Now, back to MEPs. We know we got 4 twitches, so we can do MEPs. I could go up here and select MEPs, but I wanted to point out we have this little feature, this little eyeball. If I click on that eyeball, it navigates to the next view that has MEPs in it. So I can do everything I need right from the mode control area here. Now, For MEPs, I do need to click on the left MEP and expand it because they always start at 0. We would never want to pre-program those. And I'm going to go to 140 volts. I'm going to select the lightning bolt, which will stimulate. I get my byte block warning. I click yes, and it will stimulate. And I can go up in intensity, make them a little bigger, and then close that, expand the right one, and I'm just going to jump up here real quick and do that. Those look good. Right click, set baseline, right click, set baseline. Now, while we were in there, I do want to point out many of the things that you used to have to left or right click in a mode to change, like the mode settings, are now available right in the mode when you expand it. So here's my output, high 1. So we've got the pairs, high 1, high 2, high 3, high 4. We're using a TCS4 in this case. The polarity, normal. So if I wanted to reverse it, of course, I would just choose reverse. Pulse count, ISI, pulse width, whether I want to use double trains, and I've got my sweeps and delays all available right there. If I do want to change the mode, I can still right click and choose mode setup if I like. Also, it's available right here in this mode control. So we started acquisition. We check impedance acquisition. We've acquired data in all the different modalities that we have up here right now. To adjust these parameters in the mode setup, just like in Classic, I can come in here and actually one of the really neat things about Surgical Studio, if you aren't using a channel, instead of having to go into the channel setup and disable or delete a channel, you literally can unenable it. So in this case, I'm not doing a peroneus longus. I just unenable it, click OK. Everything gets respaced and everything's good. I can just keep running without having to go to channel setup and delete the channel. And then if I like, I can come back at any time and re-enable it. And it's back. And of course, we didn't have any data with that set, but we do now. So let's hit the eyeball, go back to, actually with this one, I'm going to jump to the EP EMG window, get our SSEPs going again. So adjusting stim parameters. Again, right within the mode control are most of your stim parameters that you can adjust at any time. You'll see your rep rate, intensities. In this case, we're using the ES9, so we've got high 1 through 8 and the low 1. So we're coming out of high 1 output. Pulse counts, pulse width, and then some display functions there having to do with how the mode is run with millisecond sweeps per division, whether the reject's on, digital filtering, all of the similar things that we had in Cascade Classic, all available here. You'll see you've got your tools here where you can store a trial, erase a trial, do a single stim, and then if you're doing if you want to do some more averages, so I had it set to 50. I hit the average. Add the average count for this trial only, and my average count went to 100. So I can temporarily do that. and it will allow me to add a few more averages to see if I can't make something a little smoother. So these are some new features that are in Cascade Surgical Studio that you'll not find in Classic. And after I did that initial one, it went back to my averages of 50 as I had it set. Now, typically I would do an average count of 50, but in the interest of time, I wanted to make this go quicker.
Mike, if I might for a second.
Of course.
Too. I don't know how many of you have ever been in the OR and someone, not yourself, unplug your machine, kick your power plug out of the wall. One of the great features of Surgical Studio is if you have that happen to you and plug back up, we all know when we append the procedure, we've got to, how many have ever started the procedure again and have flat lines because we forgot to reset our stimulators? Surgical Studio doesn't make you do that. It actually remembers your last stimulus parameters and puts them back where they were originally, so you can just pick up and continue on with your append. The only thing it will do, it will ask you for a bite block again because it doesn't know why you stopped, but you will still be at the same stim intensity that you were when the power was lost.
Excellent. Good point, John. Thank you for adding that. Okay. A couple quick things. There is a button in each of these mode windows. You can now start and stop modes right from these buttons. I'll start my free run here. Entering events. As long as I'm not in a sub menu like a mode window or something, I can just start typing. No longer do you need to type Control Z to start, and enter events. So now an event is entered here. I just put in hello. Also up under, on the menu bar, if I choose event, I can have my predefined list of events. I'm going to make this a little bigger so we can see it a little better. So we can talk about events very quickly here. Screenshots. We can manually take them, and that is taken here. Every time I enter an event, a screenshot is taken, and I can select that event. I can right click on it and I can view the screenshot. So I can see what the screen looked like at that when that event was entered. Right click, view screenshot. Screenshots can also be included in the report if you choose to make a report at the end of the study. I can choose right from here if I definitely want to include these particular screenshots. That's why they're underneath the camera there. I'll also have the opportunity during the report generation to include or not include any screenshots that are taken. Okay, ending data acquisition. I'm going to go up to case, close case. It's now shutting my case down, and I could, if I wanted to, go to review, and it will show me my cases, all my cases, but from today. So here's the one I did today. If I double click it, it would open it up, or I could go to the lower right. Remember, you got to go lower right here and choose review, and it will bring up my case in review. So here's where we ended. Now, I didn't talk about this a lot during the case, but during the case, you still have your time bar, and you can go to any point along that time bar during the case. One of the cool things about Surgical Studio, again, is when you go back in time, your time bar does turn yellow, but you can see the data that's being acquired at that time along with the data that was acquired in look back. And then you have tools down here at the bottom. And if you hover on any of them, they will show you what they do. So this is going to jump me to the next event along my time bar here. This is going to move me forward 1 second at a time. This is going to move me forward 30 seconds at a time. this is going to take me all the way to the end, and this is going to take me all the way to the beginning. So anyway, you need to explore some of these tools and see how they work. You will quickly become familiar with what they do. Now, generating a report. It can be done during a case, but I like to always close my cases and then bring them up in review. I'm going to choose create a report from my case. And I'm just going to select one of these reports here. Now, if you haven't created any, you will just get an all waveforms report. In next week's session, we will be talking more about how reports are, how they can be edited and created. But I'm going to choose this report. Now, if you have an older system, Microsoft Word is required in order to generate these reports. So if you don't have Microsoft Word, you will not be able to use our report generator. So you can see Microsoft Word launched. It's pulling data out of my case. Here's where I get the opportunity to enter my screenshots. And yeah, let's say I want to show my impedances and my baselines. We'll just pick the last one here. No, don't want that screenshot. I want something. Doesn't have a menu open in it. Yeah, we'll take that one. We'll take the hello and we'll click OK. And it's importing all that important information. And here's our report, pulling data out of the patient case information. And again, these are all customizable. In this case, I've got my event and chat logs, some train of floor data, some cursor tables. I'm not really familiar with what's exactly in this report, but I'm going to scroll down past all these cursor tables. I can get my waveforms, all my left lower waterfalls. And at the very end, I will see the screenshots that I chose to incorporate. I know that's probably kind of jumpy, but I'll try and slow it down a little bit here. And because it's Word, you can edit any of these things. I could perhaps move this up a little bit by getting rid of that and maybe moving some screenshots up like that, fitting the page a little better. I can then save and exit. And one of the selections is save this document as a PDF. So it's saving right now. Lots of data, lots of screenshot data. Okay, we're back at Surgical Studio. I'm going to close the case. I do have the opportunity to set this as reviewed. A physician might change the status of this from completed to reviewed, and then it could be archived or recording finished to reviewed. Now, at this point, if I needed to archive it, I would choose the patient. But one thing I wanted to point out, if you do select this, your reports are now associated down here in the lower right-hand corner. So it's all one compact record of the patient. It's not patient data and another report and that kind of thing. Everything is in one record. And again, record administration will be discussed in a third of our series. But I'm going to archive this. I am going under administration and records and archive records. So this would be how you would perhaps move this data to a server or a database, or many people use the USMON and they might put their records there. So you would pick this case, you would choose archive. and choose where to archive it. You could put it on an external disk, a server location somewhere. I'm going to put it on the local machine in this case, and just hit the dots over here. And I'm going to choose to put it on my desktop. And then select that and click archive. Oh, okay. So I've got, unfortunately right now, I've got it set up to use my CADlink server, and that was what the message displayed. I would need to choose to put it or not be connected to my server at this point in order to archive to that a specific location. But that's the gist of how it's done. And real quick, I do want to point out, I'm actually going to close this application now. It's got us through our outline up to archiving data. I do want to point out that we do have our CADX simulator available for free right now. And I want to show you how to get that because you will find that to be a really, really useful tool for not only learning Cascade Surgical Studio, but testing yourself or testing others on how that works. So let me make a quick change here. And I will show you how that is done. And where you can find that information. Okay. All right. On our website, if you go back to the support page, and you can use these little arrows here at the top. Here is, now is a good time to build upon your IOM skills. CADX Surgical Simulator, free. Click on Learn More button. And of course, you have to be logged in. So I will log in. Under downloads, free CADX simulator, select that. Read this page. This will get you started on it. Here's general instructions in PDF, and Cindy Frankie, another one of our support specialists, has made some excellent videos showing how all the different things work, and they're all available on this page for CADX Simulated. We will go into more detail on that in 2 weeks on our session 3, but really I would strongly encourage everybody to take advantage of this. This is really a great offer that we're making to folks to use this really cool tool during this time when we might have a little more time to enhance our skills. So with that, Jonathan, have any questions come up that you're aware of?
There have been a few. Some I've already answered, but I have one that that someone's asked. Can you take a screenshot of the event log?
Sure. There's not a reason in the world you couldn't maximize the window and then do a screenshot of it. Depending on how many events you have in there, they may not all fit on the screen at one time, but certainly you could take a screenshot of it. have there been any, if anybody would like to ask a verbal question, you can use the raise your hand, and I think Jonathan can unmute you and we could chat with you real quick. But we just have a few minutes left. So if anyone would like to ask questions, now is a great time.
I do have a question coming in, a couple of questions. We're going to do that right now. This is
Okay.
Cameron. They're self-muted. So I've unmuted them. If they can unmute themselves, they can ask a question. All right. Well, on that one, this was maybe a question from Jerome. Hey, Jerome. No, Jerome, can you hear me? Yeah, there's several coming in. We'll get to them as we can. No answer from that. I'm unmuting you as you go. Make sure you're unmuted. This one is from Ernesto Lima. Make sure
Hello?
you unmute yourself. There you are. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for
Awesome.
putting this together. So it's really, really helpful.
Excellent.
My question is,
Hey, Dr. Lima.
Hi, how are you doing, Mike?
I'm well, sir. Thank you.
And I was in a remote in a case this week, and we are running our main window, have a lot of stuff going, and I haven't seen this before. And all of a sudden, like I think we have 2 X's on the right side, they were red, saying that there is too many mode running. And I was seeing that the person in the OR have to go and uncheck and the upper train of 4 and the lower train of 4. And after that, we were able to keep doing the work that we were doing. But why this is happening? In another instances, I didn't see this, but now I see this in one occasion. Can you please explain that?
I don't know what you think, John, but if this is the same procedure file you've used before, I'm not sure I have an answer, but generally it could be you've got more than 32 channels in use. Some of this, if this wasn't made specifically in Surgical Studio, sometimes when you export out of Classic and import into Surgical Studio, the multiple tests functionality is a little tricky to take care of. So you do have to verify that. It almost sounds like you had too many channels in use at one time. You have any opinion on that, John?
Yeah, in Surgical Studio, one test supports 16 modes, and that's the max it will. We don't have that heap limit that we used to have, but it will only support 16 modes. Ran into this yesterday. Had to make a separate test just for train of 4 yesterday because we had so many modes already, but 16 per test. So, and also, like you said, Mike, if they're using multiple channels and they need to be used a different way, it can also bring up the X. So it would just need to be put on a separate test, and that's just off to the left-hand side. You can create a new test in the procedure setup.
Thank you very much.
All right, do have another one. John Clark has a question.
Hi, thank you much for the presentation. I'm JP Clark from University of California, San Francisco. And I wanted to know if you're hooked up to a patient, you're running a case, whether you can drop and review another case while contemporaneously monitoring another.
Yes, you can add, absolutely, you could be doing review of another case at the same time that you were monitoring one, for sure.
Great, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Got another question, Yassine. Yassine, are you there? No.
Well, John, we've reached our hour.
Okay.
I would just like to thank everyone for joining us. If there are questions, you will get an email after this webinar to whatever email you signed in with. Please let us know. Submit the questions. If we have to, we'll be happy to do even more webinars in the future and answer specific questions, or please reach out to any of us at Cadwell, and we're glad to help any way we can. So thank you again for joining us. John, thank you for your help.
My pleasure.
And we hope everyone can join us next week for Under the Hood of Surgical Studio. Everybody stay safe out there. And again, we really appreciate you at Cadwell. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Mike.